We're always told we have to make a choice. Either accept yourself just as you are, or you got to be constantly pushing to become something new, something better. But what if that choice, what if it's a total trap? Today, we're going to dig into this massive tension that really, it shapes everything. Our lives, our societies, and you won't believe it, even science itself. It's all about this dance, the dance between being and becoming. Okay, let's dive right in. Have you ever felt that? Truly felt torn between just accepting yourself, flaws and all, and that constant push from the world to improve, to change, to become? I mean, really felt that pull in two different directions. Well, look, this isn't just you. It's not some personal hang-up. It's this deep, fundamental conflict in how we're taught to think about, well, about everything. And once you start looking for it, you see this false choice everywhere. Think about it. In politics, it's always conservation versus development, tradition versus progress. Or what about career advice? You get told, follow your passion, that's the being side. But then you also hear, no, you have to develop skills. That's the becoming side. It's like we're forced to pick a team. But yeah, what if the choice itself? What if that's the real problem here? All right, so this isn't just some philosophical debate. This conflict, it has these incredibly deep roots that have literally split the foundations of modern science into two camps, two worldviews that just don't seem to get along. And you can see this split perfectly in the two giant pillars of physics. So on one hand, you've got the physics of being. Think classical mechanics, Newton's world. It's this timeless, totally predictable universe. It's like a perfect clock. You can run it forwards or backwards, and nothing fundamentally changes. Change is kind of, well, it's an illusion, just parts moving around. But then, on the other hand, you have the physics of becoming, and this is thermodynamics. This is where we get the arrow of time, right? Time only moves forward, things evolve, they break down, new stuff is created. It's irreversible. Here, change is not an illusion, it is the most fundamental thing there is. And as the Nobel laureate Ilya Prigozhin pointed out, for a long, long time, science has been absolutely obsessed with this idea of a stable, unchanging world, a world of being. Time wasn't seen as this creative, dynamic force. Nah, it was just a parameter on a graph, a static background. And the big problem with that? Well, it leaves a massive chunk of reality completely unexplained. Okay, so how in the world do we bridge this huge divide between stability and change, between being and becoming? Well, here's the twist. The answer isn't in some brand new scientific breakthrough. The key? It actually lies in this incredibly powerful 200-year-old philosophical idea, an idea that almost everyone gets wrong. Okay, next section. Hegel's secret to synthesis. This is all about how to think beyond these simple opposites. And to figure out how to bring these two sides together, we have to talk about a philosopher who was an absolute master at this very problem, G.W.F. Hegel. Now, let's get one thing straight right away. The popular story you've probably heard about Hegel, it's just plain wrong. I'm sure you've heard it. Thesis, antithesis, synthesis. Right? It's in every textbook. It's the simple go-to summary for Hegel. But, and this is a big but, the scholarly consensus is absolutely clear on this. Hegel never used that formula. It's a rigid, mechanical caricature, and it totally misses the genius of how he actually thought. So that old myth, it imagines change as this external battle, right? You got a thesis, and it gets attacked from the outside by its opposite, the antithesis. But Hegel's real insight, and this is so brilliant, was that the engine of change is internal. An idea or a system, it doesn't need an outside enemy. Its own internal contradictions, its own limitations, that's what forces it to break down and evolve into something new. For Hegel, real change always, always comes from within. And the real magic of Hegel's philosophy, it's all captured in this one incredible German word, Aufhebung. We usually translate it as sublation. Now, what is it? It's this single fluid motion where a conflict gets transcended. It does three things at once. First, it cancels an idea's limitations. It gets rid of what doesn't work. But at the same time, it preserves the essential truth of that idea. It keeps what's good. And finally, it lifts both up into a new, bigger, more complete understanding. So you see, it's not a lame compromise. It's a genuine creative leap forward. This might sound a little abstract, but we see it in action all the time. The perfect example? Einstein and Newton. Think about it. Einstein's theory of relativity totally canceled Newton's laws as being the final, absolute truth about the universe. They weren't. But, and this is key, it also preserved Newtonian physics. It's still totally true and useful for describing things at everyday speeds, right? We still use it to send rockets to the moon. And then, finally, it lifted both ideas into a much bigger, more comprehensive picture of space-time. See? The old theory wasn't just thrown in the trash, it was integrated. It found its proper place inside a bigger truth. All right, section 3, the integration advantage. Now that we have this new way of thinking, this powerful tool of sublation, we can finally start to escape that trap of false choices. And we can start to see how integrating being and becoming isn't just a neat philosophical trick. It creates real, powerful advantages literally everywhere we look. And it turns out modern science is basically proving Hegel right, over and over again. You know that old false choice in quantum physics? Is it a particle, a stable little thing, being, or is it a wave, a dynamic process, becoming? Well, that was resolved by the idea of quantum fields, which, well, they're both. It depends on how you look at them. Or how about biology? The endless debate between genetic determinism, your fixed being, and environmental influence, your fluid becoming. That's being resolved by epigenetics, which shows how our stable genes actually enable adaptive development. In science, the biggest breakthroughs always happen when we get beyond these false dichotomies. Okay, so this is cool for science, but what about us? This same way of thinking applies directly to our lives. We can build a truly dynamic identity, one that holds on tight to our core values. That's our being, while at the same time we're out there learning new things, developing new skills. That's our becoming. And it works for societies, too. We can build cultures that preserve their valuable traditions, their heritage, while also adapting to the future. It's about honoring both stability and growth. So, the takeaway here is huge. We don't have to choose. We don't have to pick one side or the other. We can, and we should, embrace both. The goal isn't to win the war between stability and change. It's to find that dynamic equilibrium, that sweet spot. It's a creative dance between structure and process, where each one actually makes the other stronger. So maybe the real question isn't to be or to become. Maybe the real question we should be asking ourselves is, how shall we dance with both? Because ultimately, this whole shift in perspective, it's an invitation. It's an invitation to just stop fighting the tension, to stop trying to choose, and instead to start participating more consciously, more gracefully in this beautiful natural rhythm of existence. A dance that really has been happening all along.